Hi there. Welcome. I feel weird today. Hey there, welcome back to Literary Weaponry. My name is Amanda, and today we are going to be doing part one of my first quarter wrap up of 2021. Now, first quarter is January through March. And yeah, we're splitting this into two parts because I feel like if I do it all in one, it's going to be way too long and that's just annoying. So let's just see how this goes. So, first quarter, January through March 2021. I feel like I was actually had a really successful reading time. I read a total of 35 books. You know, I honestly can say I enjoyed most of them. I think my overall rating for that first quarter was like between 3.4, 3.5. So relatively successful in my book. In January, I read 10 books at 3,128 pages. February, 12 books at 4,193 pages. And then March, most successful reading month ever for me, 13 books and 5,169 pages. I am aghast. Like usually I'm a 4 to 5 book a month kind of person, and right now as I'm recording this is April, and that's more or less what I'm at right now, is that like that 5 mark. But January through March, man, I don't know. I think it was that winter depression. I just wanted to read and hide under a blanket. But no, like I said, it was a very successful. I was really happy about it. For the most part, I am looking at my stats here. If I figure out how to do it, I'll like take little screenshots of what I'm looking at and put it here if I figure out how to do that. Otherwise, just enjoy. My throat's kind of sore today, which is why I'm sitting here sipping tea. Oh, my husband got me this mug. Hold on, I want to show you. There's a little lipstick on it, so ignore that part. But look, hold on, glare. There we go. So like, look, there's a little kitty cat inside of the mug. There's his little ears and his nose. And if you look, it's hard to see, but he has little paws right there. Anyway, it's adorable. My husband gave it to me yesterday, and it's now my favorite mug. I love it. Most of what I read, just looking at these stats, was a fantasy romance, and no one is surprised by that. It's my favorite genre. Like, that's fine. I also have read quite a bit of erotic fantasy, as well as, let's see, there's a smattering of dystopian, magic, retellings, magical realism. I don't remember what book that was connected with off the top of my head. Apparently it was involved with something, I don't know what. So yeah, there's that. And the majority of what I read was books that I owned. I also read several off of Kindle Unlimited, as well as getting some through NetGalley, and one that was sent directly from the publisher, which was incredibly kind of them. I usually feel really weird reaching out directly to a publisher for a book. Like, asking on NetGalley is one thing. Going, hey publisher, I know you don't know me, but give me free shit. Like, that just feels awkward to me. I don't know. That's just me. So yeah, no, pretty excited about that. And also most of what I read was physical. About 20% of what I've read so far this year has been in ebook form. Or I do ebook and audio under the same umbrella. So yeah, there's that. I think what I'd like to discuss, I've been debating up until this point whether we're going to talk about my favorite reads of first quarter first, or if we're going to just jump in with the tea and do my biggest disappointments. Like, what are we going to do? I think, just because I'm feeling it today, we are going to jump in with my biggest disappointments so far this year, because that's just how I'm feeling, Might as well just run with it. Now, when I initially wrote up this list, it had 4 books that are my biggest disappointments so far this year. These were books that I was excited for. I had a lot of anticipation to reading, ones I'd been looking forward to, and then ended up just like falling completely flat for me. So let's just get started. Let's have another sip of tea and then continue. Okay. as I leave half my lipstick on the mug. That's fine. So we are just gonna jump right in here with Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angelis. Now this is actually the OwlCrate edition that I have, and if you recall, mid 2020, you could not look on the internet without seeing this book. It was everywhere. Everyone was talking about it. It was so incredibly hyped. Like, it's probably one of the most hyped books I've ever seen, and it was insane. It was absolutely everywhere. I didn't get around to reading it until this January. Why? I don't know, but it was on my list of books I want to read by the end of the year, so here we are. This is garbage. Like, I can't come up with anything kind to say about this book. I think I gave it a 2. I really shouldn't have. That was being overly generous of me. It's really not, it's not for me. Sometimes I can read a book and go, oh, I really didn't enjoy this, but I can see how some people could. This is not one of those cases. I don't know what you saw in this book if you did happen to enjoy it. Tell me. I'd love to know. I want to know what you saw in this, because completely I missed any kind of enjoyment or anything. I spent the whole thing, literally I was reading it and bitching about it out loud as I was reading. Hated it. Like, I never even figured out who the big bad was. There's always a big bad in books like this. And who is the bad guy? As far as I could tell, it was someone in a mirror, or was it the mirror itself? Like, what the fuck was going on? And the main character, I don't remember her name, don't care to look it up, couldn't care less, but she was so selfish. Like, I don't mind characters being a little selfish, I don't mind them thinking of themselves, but like, being outright so selfish that it means cruelty to others, that's a little line crossing there. And like, she just came off, pardon me, as a complete cunt, and I hated her. Like, why would someone want to read a whole book based on a character who's supposedly trying to find their way when she's just a miserable bitch? Like, why read this? I don't know. Not my thing. I might unhaul it. I mean, it's beautiful. It's the only reason it's still on my shelves is because this edition is absolutely gorgeous. But hated this book. I think I gave it a 2. I'm considering sitting here right now and downgrading it to 1 because I hated it that much. Anyway, next up, I have found, discussing this book online, like on my blog or on social media and things like that, that my opinions of this book are controversial. I've had a few people come at me when I've said bad things about this one, but we're gonna go for it anyway. So, here we go. Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I know there's people out there that are just haters of this author. Like, they just read her books. I am not one of them. I have read the entire 7-book Throne of Glass series probably 4 times, all right? I read the first 3 in this series at least 3 times. Like, I really enjoy her writing. I just do. I enjoy her stories. I enjoy the way that they come together. I like the character dynamics. Like, they work for me. I love them. But this thing was a piece of crap. Like, I can't believe I got through it, to be honest. Like, look at this. Like, by page 200, I was over it. But we kept going. Because I'm not going to DNF a Maas book. Like, who am I? But no, I was really pumped to read this book. I pre-ordered it, like, so excited to get it. The minute it came to my doorstep, I was curled up on the couch reading this thing, all right? Here's the thing. I loved Nesta's build-up in the first 3 books. Like, she seemed like such a determined character who was putting aside her own pain and her own issues to try and help help Elaine, help her family. Like, she was using her aggression and frustration to try and do the right thing for the people that she cared about, and those people are few, and I feel that so hard. I'm not a people person, okay? There's very few people I give a crap about, but whenever I care about you, I will go hard, all right? And that was Nesta. Like, she put aside all of her own shit to try and help the people that she loved. And then in this book, this is just her being part of a girl gang. Like, I don't know. Like, what was the purpose of this other than way too many Faye fellatio scenes? Like, entirely too many. I do not mind sex in books. Like, give it to me. I love reading erotic fantasy. Like, I enjoy that. But this, too much, all right? It was ridiculous, and none of it felt like it was a natural progression for either of the characters involved. And don't even get me started on Rysand and freaking Feyre. That whole relationship just went straight down the toilet. Like, and all the plot points. I know I'm not describing this well. I'm trying not to give spoilers. I know most people have probably at least read if you're a fantasy reader, you're at least aware of the Court of Thorns and Roses series. You've seen spoilers for it, like you know what's going on. But I'm trying not to deep dive that. None of the romantic scenes felt natural. The story's progression with the bad guys felt very convenient. They just happened to be where they were supposed to be. And even though like they were being fought, like Nesta and Cassian and company were fighting them, like it didn't feel natural. Like everything was way too simple, way too convenient. Nothing felt real. I couldn't get absorbed in the story because it was just all falsities and it was all falsehoods, and I hated it. I hated every bit of it. And then the whole you can only be in the girl gang if you're damaged thing, like fuck you. This was awful. Anyway, next up is another book that has been incredibly hyped in the community for, I think since September of 2019. It's been well loved by fantasy readers for quite some time, YA fantasy readers. And I ordered a copy a while back, probably late 2019. I ordered a copy and I just got around to reading it, I think in March. And let me tell you, what a letdown. The book we're talking about right now is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alix E. Harrow. Now, first of all, let's just take a moment to appreciate this cover, all right? Let's just take a look at this beauty real quick. Like, she is gorgeous. Look at her. So, of course, and it has deckled edges. I know, like, there's a lot of people who hate deckled edges. I like them. I think I like the texture. It gives me something to kind of fiddle with my fingers while I'm reading. I know that sounds weird, but I just like touching them. Anyway. So no, I went into this book with high expectations, which was probably part of my problem. This is such a well-loved book in the community. So many people love it. Like, you see it everywhere still. It's been out nearly 2 years now, and like it's still everywhere. Like, so many people's top 10 list. And so I had a lot of expectations for it. Unfortunately, reading this was just, I had to force myself to pick it up, and I couldn't get through more than like 3 or 4 pages at a time. I was so bored. I actually ended up having to read it as audio because it's easier to force myself to read something I'm not enjoying through audio than it is to actually sit still and do it. And I couldn't sit with this thing. Like, I just couldn't do it. It was just a chore. This was not reading for enjoyment. This was a flat out chore. The main character, I didn't feel like there was much of any character growth for her the entire story. Like, all it is, she starts off as a really strong, determined girl who's had some terrible circumstances around her. Then she allows herself to get crushed by a rich white man. And then, like, the rest of the story is just her continuing to be emotionally crushed by this rich white man. Like, I don't want to read that. Who wants to read that? I don't understand. And then I know my personal preference is that I don't like books that center around family ties. Like, it's not my thing. And this book was entirely centered around family, found family, that kind of thing. And it's not my cup of tea, not my jam, you know, whatever phrase you'd like to use. Like, I don't like it. I don't like when the story is centered around family ties. I don't know. Just not my trope. But that's what this was. And the main character, January, it's just her and her dad abandoning her. And that's just amazing. Like, who wants to read that? I don't know. Didn't enjoy it, really hated it, quite frankly. Had to force myself to finish it. I have never been so relieved as I was when I finished this book. So, last one is one I don't have a physical copy of. It's the third book in a series. We were talking about Queen of Volts, the third book of the Shadow Game trilogy by Amanda Foody. Now this, like I said, it's the third book in the series. The first one, what is the first one called? I'm gonna look it up real quick. I think it's called Ace of Shades. Okay, so it's Ace of Shades is the first book in this trilogy, then King of Fools, and then Queen of Volts. Now, admittedly, I read Ace of Shades as an arc, and it wasn't fantastic, but you could feel the potential for the author in that story. So even though I only gave it a 3, I was still excited to read the next book. I'm like, wow, it feels like she's going to be doing some great things. I can see where she might be going with this, and her writing is going to develop. Totally excited for it. So when King of Fools came out, which is the second book in the trilogy, I absolutely loved it. Like I gave it, I believe, a 4. Yeah, just glancing at it here. I have my computer here, so I'm not just staring into the abyss. No, I gave King of Fools a 4. I loved the story. There was some great character development. There was a lot of tension and animosity between these characters. There was a big bad they were out after, and just, I liked it. Like I could feel the story developing and the characters developing, and there was a lot of change for the characters in this story. And then, third book, Queen of Volts sucked. I can't even say that I read the whole thing. That thing was a skim read at best. Why? Because the majority of that book is just dialogue. It's just the characters running their mouths over and over and over again. And they're like, I know it's a YA novel. They're supposed to be these fearsome gangs and hoodlums, and they're just children acting ridiculous. Like that's all it was. And it never, I can suspend my disbelief often reading YA, because they are in YA novels, what is it, like ages 15 to 18 or something like that, I don't know. They are kind of still for children, but I can suspend my disbelief in some of the actions that they take if they are written well. But I could not believe that a whiny little 18-year-old is a gang leader. Like, they were not written in any strong fashion. Like, it was just bad. It was just flat out terrible. And there's so many vendettas and things. It just felt like schoolyard squabbles. And I love YA fantasy. I love reading it, but this was not a good example of YA fantasy. So, unnecessary drama, juvenile vendettas, dialogue that just was never ending. I'd love to say I could recommend that series because book 1 was okay. Book 2 was great, but book 3 was such garbage that I just can't even. Like, that's the best I can say. I can't even. So not worth anyone's time. So yeah, that is the first part of my first quarter wrap up 2021. Next time, we're going to actually talk about my favorite reads, which I think is probably obviously be a lot more positive, but I didn't feel like being positive today, so here we are. So yeah, hope you enjoy that. Any questions, comments, whatever, you know where the comment box is. In the liking and the whatever, if you do that, great. If not, it's your thing. Whatever. I'd love to see you back, but so yeah, hope you all are having a great day. Talk to you next time.